Thank you. Cool. So yeah, inverting the ad monopolies. Well, let's talk about what that means. First off, your attention and data and businesses. So as you use social media, you're giving all these interactions, likes, comments, etc. It's pulling together a huge amount of data that Zuck and other people love to say is theirs, right? There's this whole iceberg that you barely have access to. You can download your data from Facebook, but it's really hard to interpret. And certainly no one else has access to unless it's through a state-sanctioned data sale that would happen in the form of buying ads, right? And so you have a lot of businesses that come to Facebook, they say, I want to have access to someone who's into Coke products and caps, right? And then Facebook is like, okay, we have that intersection of the audience. We can give you those 200,000 people to reach, and now pay us, right? And so this is kind of the basis of the ad monopolies, and how they operate. A little bit of context on me before we get into it too much. So I used to work adjacent to these ad monopolies. I worked in ad tech, the devil. And ad tech is really a bad industry because A, the internet is totally dependent on it to run. It's how a lot of creatives monetize, publishers monetize. And B, it's really a race to the bottom. So when I was an engineer in ad tech, what I would focus on is milliseconds of shaving off milliseconds of time for performance so that advertisers could get billable impressions. And it's like, what the hell is the value, right? This is like what I'm spending my career trying to optimize for. And so I started Cent back in 2017 to help solve this creative monetization problem, initially with a social network that used microtransactions. So instead of giving, for instance, a penny or a like, you would give a penny, and all sorts of other monetization mechanisms. And then Cent also added NFTs once NFTs became a thing after CryptoKitties. And so we tokenized tweets. We were the one that did Jack's first tweet. And then we're also thinking about other platforms that we can go to, having collectibles be a native part of other experiences out on the web. So just generally, in Web3, an observation is that collect is replacing the like, right? So before Web3, we had this sort of vacuous interaction that was very drive-by. You click like, and then you kind of forget about something for the rest of time. Facebook or whoever would capture that data and monetize it. But now we're actually taking control of that data and going beyond just that initial value. A lot of people, I have the Wojak on the right, because you're collecting things because you find them valuable and that they could appreciate and value in the future, and you have that personal attachment that you're holding to it, right? So this is happening all over Web3. Obviously, you guys all know, being at this conference. But in general, we really see this as the successor to the Web 2 version of the like. And you start to see it take place in products, right? So on the left, we have Context App, which is basically like a wallet watching tool. And so you have the Friends with Benefits NFT holders, and you're able to see what they collect. In the middle, you have Lens, which is also heavily based on NFTs and actions that people take, collecting, posting, etc. And on the right, you have Mint.fun. So a bunch of really cool products and services that are being built around this data that exists natively on chain, starting to give social context to the interactions that are happening. But the question that everyone loves to ask is, when mass adoption? And the truth is that network effects are kind of by definition like harmful. They make it tough to leave these products like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, etc., even if better alternatives exist. And so we're Web3, we're crypto native, we need to use the crypto native way to kind of outclass them. And since Bitcoin and everything that's come after it, really the way that we've achieved that is literally with money, right? We need money somehow as a factor in the equation. So who has money? Any of you? We got to figure out who has money to help drive adoption. Well, it turns out advertisers have money, right? Advertisers have a lot of money. They're businesses that are cash flow positive, and they have a lot of money to spend. And so I have Sad Pepe over on the bottom right asking, like, what? Like, does that mean that nothing is going to change? Like, how are we actually going to evolve this system to get past these ad monopolies? And so this is kind of more leaning into more like hypothetical, what I think from here on out. And I think that we need to basically bring ad budgets on chain. So globally, there was over $500 billion spent on digital ads just last year, right? The crypto market cap is somewhere between like 1 and 3 trillion, right? Depending on what season of the market you're in. So there's a huge amount of money that's being spent on digital ads that if we could start to bring that money on chain somehow in a useful way, we could actually really drive adoption. But how do we do it? Again, my hypothesis is that we have to give value to your audience directly, right? And I see free collectibles as a path where a brand or a business can offer things like coupons or rewards that aren't just like POAPs, right? They're not just like a snapshot of a moment in time. They're things that actually have incentives tied to them and that can actually really drive value for someone who doesn't know anything about Web3. They can just be like, oh, I can get $5 off my next purchase. Of course I'm going to sign up and go through this process, however complicated it may be, to claim it. And we've seen this pattern work in the past. So on the left, we have uTorrent, which is a BitTorrent client. We saw millions of people downloading torrent clients, which are very like confusing. Like, what is a magnet link? It was a lot of new technology, but the value was there. People wanted to watch movies, right? There was a clear pot of gold. Same thing with Chrome extensions. This is the Honey Chrome extension, which automatically applies discounts at checkouts wherever you're shopping online. You could even argue the same thing about MetaMask, but it got people to install Chrome extensions, which most people have never done before. So I think there's a shift that needs to happen in how businesses are thinking about NFTs. We talk with a lot of businesses at Cent, and we've talked with a lot of peers in the space as well, and a lot of them think of it as a new revenue stream, that they can make money selling NFTs to their audience, right? And I put this Porsche collection on here because this is probably the most egregious example in the last month of a cash grab, where it was so poorly executed that I think they refunded all of the purchases, and they basically kind of canceled the project after it had launched. And so, again, in the hypothetical land, I think we really need to start thinking about shifting from revenue as businesses think about NFTs to marketing, which would lead to revenue. And so we've started to see some early directional success in this. So Starbucks launched the Odyssey program, which is part of their loyalty rewards program. It's about bringing added value incentives to people who are already engaging with your brand. And I'm really hopeful that a lot of other brands are going to start to think about it in the same way in the future, that it's not just a money-making opportunity, but it's actually a way of deepening engagement with your audience. But then going back to the start where we were talking about getting rid of the ad monopolies, so if we can have enough businesses doing this, then we can start to actually build like a useful social graph that transcends crypto art, that transcends games, that transcends the early things that we've seen in the NFT space. If you get a Coca-Cola that brings on 20 million people onto a blockchain, and then 10 other brands do that, you now start to get more and more precise intersectional data on these people that can actually be an alternative to having to go to Facebook or someone else to get that type of information and reach certain users, right? And so over time, the value of this data compounds as more people opt into the system, and you can start to opt out of the ad monopolies. And I think that this approach is superior over traditional ad platforms for a number of reasons. I think, first of all, the data is like public and free to use. You don't actually have to like pay a third party like Facebook to get access to it. And there are increasingly tools that allow brands to connect directly and own those relationships directly with their audience. So XMTP is a messaging protocol that works directly with wallets. And I think over time, we're going to see more services like this, more services like Lens, that allow people to connect directly without having to go broker it through a third party. So, hopeful takeaways. I believe that we can bankrupt ad monopolies by bringing data on-chain. I think to date, we've seen a lot of social motivators with these apps like Lenster and value-driven sort of privacy-centric tools that are really great, but I don't think it's going to be enough for us to actually get there and to sort of supersede the Web 2 ad monopolies. And ultimately, I think it's about incentives and really having brands incentivize their audiences to come into these new systems, get the data on-chain, and they could actually very much foot the bill, given how large their ad budgets are, given how much resources they are already devoting to just trying to reach their audience. Why not just give that money directly to your audience and then also build a longer, more enduring relationship without a third-party middleman in the future. So, and stop paying Zuck. So, yeah. Thank you.
Do we have any questions?
Hey, thank you. A really great presentation. I think the problem I see with big brands bringing people on is ultimately the value of the user is the data is the value. Like if I'm Starbucks, I wouldn't want to put my customers' information on the chain because then someone else could come in and start airdropping them. So I think that's a bit of an incentive misalignment. What do you see that?
Well, I think choice is a big part of it. So sure, you can airdrop, and I think we've seen a lot of spammy airdrops already happen in our industry, especially for notable wallets. I think choice is critical, so it's more about someone choosing to collect something and establishing that relationship from an audience member to a brand first. So a brand might offer something, but then thereafter, it's up to the potential recipient to really opt into that relationship.
So tell us about Scent. Is that a project that addresses the issues you just talked about?
Pipe dream. No, we really want more and more people, creators, brands, etc., to start to use NFTs in a really scalable way. I think there's a lot of companies in the space that are here at this conference that are doing that very same thing. And so, I think it's something that we're definitely focused on with some of the tools that we've built to make collecting something that can happen on any website. But I would also think, I also believe that it's like really an ecosystem-wide movement. Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Cameron.